Okay, more about The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Colin. Alright, so Mary heard someone crying late at night when everyone else was in bed. So I think she actually, there were a few times where she heard someone crying, and she didn't want her to know about the who was crying, so she said, uh, "Oh, that's nothing. It's just uh, the wuthering on the moor." So just like saying, that's there's no crying. That's just the wind. But Mary was too curious about it. She was like determined to find out who is this, who is crying, who's doing this crying. She woke up and she heard the crying, and late at night when everyone else was in bed. So page 94. Okay. I'm going to start on actually the end of 93. She There was a tapestry door. She pushed it open very gently and closed it behind her, and she stood in the corridor and could hear the crying quite plainly, though it was not loud. It was on the other side of the wall at her left, and a few yards farther on there was a door. She's she could see a glimmer of light coming from beneath it. The someone was crying in that room, and it was quite a young someone. She walked to the door and pushed it open, and there she was standing in the room. It was a big room with ancient, handsome furniture in it. There was a low fire glowing faintly on the hearth, and a night light burning by the side of a carved four-posted bed hung with brocade, and on the bed was lying a boy crying fretfully. Mary wondered if she was in a real place or if she had fallen asleep again and was dreaming without knowing it. The boy had a sharp, delicate face, the color of ivory, and he seemed to have eyes too big for it. He had also a lot of hair, which tumbled over his forehead in heavy locks and made his thin face seem smaller. He looked like a boy who had been ill, but he was crying more as if he were tired and cross than as if he were in pain. Mary stood near the door with her candle in her hand, holding her breath. Then she crept across the room, and as she drew nearer, the light attracted the boy's attention, and he turned his head on his pillow and stared at her, his gray eyes opening so wide that they seemed immense. "Who are you?" he said at last in a half-frightened whisper. "Are you a ghost?" "No, I am not," Mary answered, her own whisper sounding half-frightened. "Are you one?" He stared and stared and stared. Mary could not help noticing what strange eyes he had. They were agate gray, and they looked too big for his face because they had black lashes all round them. "No," he replied after waiting a moment or so. "I am Colin." "Who is Colin?" she faltered. "I am Colin Craven. Who are you?" "I am Mary Lennox. Mr. Craven is my uncle." "He is my father," said the boy. Your father, gasped Mary. No one ever told me he had a boy. Why didn't they? Come here, he said, still keeping his strange eyes fixed on her with an anxious expression. She came close to the bed, and he put out his hand and touched her. You are real, aren't you? He said. I have such real dreams very often. You might be one of them. Mary had slipped on a woolen wrapper before she left her room, and she put a piece of it between his fingers. Rub that and see how thick and warm it is, she said. I will pinch you a little if you like, to show you how real I am. For a minute I thought you might be a dream too. Where did you come from? He asked. From my room. The wind wuthered so I couldn't go to sleep, and I heard someone crying and wanted to find out who it was. What were you crying for? Because I couldn't go to sleep either, and my head ached. Tell me your name again. Mary Lennox. Did no one ever tell you I had come to live here? He was still fingering the fold of her wrapper, but he began to look a little more as if he believed in her reality. No, he answered, they daren't. Well, I guess I'll stop there. So I just wanted to read about the introduction to this character in the book called Colin. Archibald Craven's son. And there's another illustration for that I just read. Okay. So then later Mary, Dickon, Ben Weatherstaff, and Colin are all in the secret garden, making it look nice again. And then, so Mary grew from a spoiled little girl into a more friendly girl because of the work in the garden and the friendships that developed along the way. So that was her, the progression of her character that she went on throughout the book. And it was because of the garden, her desire to see the garden and to work in the garden, and the relationships that developed with the other characters in the story helped her grow as a person, as a young person. So that's nice. All right. And then so Colin went from a miserable bedridden boy who couldn't even walk because his leg muscles were too weak from not being used. They were atrophied. And so the definition for atrophy is gradually decline in effectiveness or vigor due to underuse or neglect. So he went from that to a happy child who could walk normally. So that was his progression in the book. And Colin was happy because in the end of the book, Colin was happy because he showed his father that he could walk like a normal boy. So that made him happy. I'm remembering there was a song that I found, I guess it was on YouTube a long time ago. I think it was called Atrophy Boy. I don't remember who did that song, but it has nothing to do with the Secret Garden. I don't think it does. Well, maybe it's about this character in the Secret Garden. Atrophy Boy. Found it on YouTube. It's probably still there. It's a song about an atrophy boy. Okay. I'm almost done here. Page 1. Okay, so this is, I thought this was kind of funny. The word gay is used in the book. But this was back when the word gay just meant happy. So that's what they were meaning in the book. They didn't mean what it. They weren't referring to what the word gay means now. So kind of funny. It's like back when I was a kid, I watching the Flintstones. Like at the time, I didn't realize like there were a lot of these cartoons that I'd watch, and I didn't realize like I thought they were like uh, made at like when like back in the 80s when I was young. I thought they were made in the 80s. I didn't realize like I think the Flintstones was made like back in the 60s maybe. But like in the 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 theme song for the Flintstones, they would sing about having a gay old time. So the Flintstones were talking about having a happy old time, joyous time, when they were saying gay old time. But I think like at the time, like I had heard that word used for something else, and so it became kind of funny how they would sing that in the Flintstones. Well, okay, so on page 1, I guess I was just gonna. Where was it on here? Uh, huh. Oh, I was in the forward. No wonder I couldn't find it. Well, oh, here it is. Okay. It would have like if I had like highlighted in the book or like put little notes in the book, I would have been easy. It would have been easier. I would have been able to find it quicker, but I don't do that anymore. That I don't make it. It makes books look crappy, especially for the next person that reads it. So okay. Anyway, so here's the sentence that I was gonna read. Um, so Mary's father, her father had held a position under the English government and had always been busy and ill himself. And her mother had been a great beauty who cared only to go to parties and amuse herself with gay people. So I'm pretty sure when she was amusing herself with gay people, well, I guess you can read it however you want to read it, but I'm pretty sure they're talking about happy people. Because this was written back in 1911. So they used that word for happy, joyous people back then, not what it means today.